Hello, Home Slices. It's Kiera with Home Slice Adulting coming to you with my review for Iyanla Fix My Life, Season 6, Episode 22, I believe, titled Pride versus Prejudice Part 2. This is the second installment of the Pride versus Prejudice series featuring Miss Rita, Miss LaShonda, y'all, I keep getting the wife's names wrong. Is it Rakima? Ramisha. There we go. Ramisha and Christian. First off, thank you for clicking on this video. Do not forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video with someone who you think will enjoy it. I want to apologize that this video is so late. I typically don't do these videos late, but I was so wrapped up in trying to prepare my online store for being up and running, and I was so into that over this weekend that other things kind of just fell by the wayside, and so doing this review was one of those things. So I apologize that it is late, but better late than never. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. This time around, we are where we left off with Miss Rita, Miss LaShonda, and Iyanla sitting down together having a conversation. And in this conversation, Iyanla is just giving it to Miss Rita straight. And I think one of the things that I admire about Iyanla is that she just really says what's on her mind. And she has this thing about emotional honesty that I think I need to have. I think a lot more people need to have it, but these days I'm trying to speak with more I phrases, with lots of I language, just because I don't want to make sweeping assumptions and, think that people are all like me. And I think that's one of the things that Miss Rita does, that she makes these sweeping assumptions that the way she does things, the way that she was raised, the way that she was brought up is the right way. And anyone who doesn't abide by her levels of cleanliness or taking care of her children or the way, she was brought up and raised, if someone is not living up to those standards of what she was used to, then she judges them and she makes these sweeping assumptions about them. And Iyanla brought up several things in the letter that she wrote to her. It was like, okay, so Ramisha told you that her mother was drug addicted. Have you ever had a conversation with Miss LaShonda, Ramisha's mother, about that drug addiction? And what's her name? Miss Rita says no. And she's like, okay, ask her. Basically, Miss LaShonda says, I was on drugs for 3 to 6 months because I lost a very close friend of mine. I was depressed and I turned to drugs for 3 to 6 months. The way Miss Rita put it, or the way Miss Rita had it in her mind, was she took the information that Ramisha gave her and she weaponized it and made it seem like Miss LaShonda was on drugs for years on end, missed, years out of Ramisha's life. And it's like, you heard what you wanted to hear. All you heard was drug addiction. You didn't hear anything else. From my understanding, if I remember correctly, LaShonda's children, Ramisha and her siblings, were taken care of by their grandmother while she was, on the recovery, or while she was drug addicted. So it's not like she wasn't loved or that she wasn't with family members, but Miss Rita had already made up in her mind the story that she would tell herself about why Ramisha is the way Ramisha is. And it's infuriating because it's microaggressive. And while I feel like Miss Rita doesn't understand what Iyanla says when she says the things that she wrote in that letter were violent, I get it. They were very microaggressive, and the root of that word is aggressive. She is aggressive with her judgments. She is aggressive with her prejudices, and it's rooted in race and class. And unfortunately, she just doesn't know how to stop looking down her nose at people. And I feel that, like I said last time, that Miss Rita thought that Iyanla was going to see her side of things, and that because Iyanla is a black woman, Ramisha was going to speak to Iyanla was going to speak to Ramisha and give her this old black lady wisdom to see things Miss Rita's way. And it's not going to work. First off, Iyanla came up in the era when, children weren't allowed to go, black children weren't allowed to go to school with white kids. She says that she was bused to a white school and was spit on. So this woman grew up in the civil rights era. She's not finna side with you being prejudiced, okay? So, do you watch the show? Okay. Miss Iyanla tells it like it is. So, I think that Miss Rita is getting a rude awakening and really didn't know what she was getting herself into, because the thing Iyanla does is that she gives everybody their fair share of the blame. Okay, you're to blame. Here's a little blame for you. Here's a little blame for you. Here's a little blame for you. Okay, you are complicit in this. You are responsible for this. I'm holding you accountable for this. And I don't understand why Miss Rita thought that she wouldn't be. Well, you know what? I do understand why, because she is an entitled and prejudiced white woman who thinks that the world should be the way it was for her. And unfortunately, as a black woman, Ramisha doesn't have that luxury, okay? Her upbringing was different. And one of the great things about people being from different places, people having different experiences, is that they can pass those things along and make the world a better place by creating this sense of understanding, and creating this sense of, you and I don't have the same experience. You and I don't always have to agree, but we all love each other. And we all have the ability and the capability to coexist. And, y'all, Miss Rita is just not getting it. And I think it's a combination of her being as old as she is, because it's very hard to change the heart of somebody who is, set in their ways. I think someone who is as prejudiced as she is, I think is going to take more than 2 days of, attempting to deprogram her. I think something wrong with her, y'all. I'm under the impression that Did she say her dad killed himself? Iyanla said something in the show, or I thought she said something in the show that kind of struck me. And she was saying that when it came to Miss LaShonda doing drugs because one of her, close friends died, Iyanla said to Miss Rita, "You're judging LaShonda for the same thing that your mother did." Now, if I remember correctly, Miss Rita said that her dad killed himself because he was depressed. Did Miss Rita say anything about her mom using drugs to kind of help get past that, or kind of help her deal with her father's passing? And I think that's, the thing about these shows being edited or whatever is that we don't get the full picture on everything. So that's what it sounds like. But I have more to say, but I got to get to the rest of the show. All right, y'all, I am back, and the story is unfolding in a way that I was not expecting. Now, I had just talked about how Miss Iyanla is good for spreading the blame around, and it's like, hey, everybody gets their share of the blame, right? I didn't know it was going to take this turn where Iyanla is sitting down to talk with LaShonda and Ramisha, and that we would learn what we have learned. Apparently, Ramisha did move around from house to house, and while they bleeped out somebody's name or something like that, maybe her stepfather, I don't know. From context clues, it was somebody who lived in the house with them, and was verbally abusive and saying that, she would never be anything, and that she was a B word and an H word. And Iyanla said something that kind of made me feel maybe an inkling of sympathy, and maybe that was what she was trying to do. Made me feel like an inkling of sympathy for Miss Rita, And Iyanla was like, well, the same way Miss Rita is like hyper vigilant and, super on top of, cleanliness and these other things and being right. In what ways are you hyper vigilant? And she's like, how about not being a B word, not being an H word, not trying to live up, to those negative things that were said to you. Apparently her mother knew about them and knew that they were going on and didn't really do anything about it. And she harbors some anger in her heart towards her mother. So maybe there is something. No, I don't know. Maybe there is something to what Rita said, that there's some anger that Ramisha harbors for her own mother, and that may have some impact. But, Miss Iyanla was right. Miss Rita, you're saying all these negative and nasty things about your daughter and the way she's raising your daughter-in-law and the way she's raising her, children. Maybe that's the reason why she doesn't want to be in community with you, But we're, diving deeper than I thought that we would into Ramisha and LaShonda's, history. And it's kind of interesting. We'll see where this goes. All right, y'all. So we're finishing up with LaShonda and Ramisha. I don't know why I keep wanting to call her something else. Like I keep wanting to say Marisha or like Ramika or something like that. Ramisha and LaShonda, her mother, are sitting down having a conversation, and we see, them opening the floodgates. And Ramisha's telling her mother that, so like so many other mothers that we have seen on Iyanla Fix My Life, they choose being with a man over their own welfare or the welfare of their children. And apparently she was with a man that was verbally abusive, who told her daughters that they wouldn't amount to anything, called them bad names. And every day Ramisha fights to not be what he called her. And that's something that I think a lot of people use as fuel. Like for nerds who, never got never got to be with the people they liked in school, or for, people who were always judged and talked about, kids who were always made fun of, use their experiences, their negative experiences to fuel, their success. And that's why they work hard in school. And that's why, they get jobs and, start businesses and become CEOs, because they are fueled by, the incidents that happened to them when they were younger. And sometimes that can be positive. I think motivation is good. But one of the things that Iyanla said is that when you fight to just not fail, and when you fight to prove people wrong, you're not doing it for the right reasons. If you were really trying your best, you would have to do it for you. And I think that's like a really good point, because in a lot of ways, the things that I want to do, I'm in business school right now, in graduate school. I am starting my own business very soon, in the next week or two. And a lot of that has to do with me not wanting to repeat these kind of generational curses and, the things that have held my family back, and, previous generations having children too early. I am turning 30 next year, still don't have any children. I have a dog. I work hard, try to save. We, have a plan to start saving up for some, bigger expenses that are coming up in our lives. I have a long-term boyfriend that I've been with for a long time, and we're talking about, getting married and, making sure that, this side business takes off so I can, feel good about being an entrepreneur and do something positive and makes a little extra money on the side. Like there's, I just got a promotion at work. There's a lot of things that I do in my life that I'm working my way towards proving people wrong about what it means to be a Black woman, or what it means to be a woman in my family, what it means to be educated. Like there's a lot of, this is kind of resonating with me in a way that I didn't really know it would. But there's a lot of things that I do to fight against, it's called stereotype threat, where you fight against stereotypes. And as a black person, it's that we're uneducated or that we are criminals. And, I am in graduate school. So I'm fighting against those stereotypes. At work, when I'm typing out emails, I agonize over making sure my grammar and spelling and everything in emails is correct, because God forbid somebody think that I'm the silly black woman, the stupid black woman who can't spell or doesn't know how to put a sentence together. There's a lot of things that I do as a black woman. I tip well because, black people are known to be or said to be bad tippers, There's a lot of things that I do to prevent myself from being labeled as a stereotype. And at the end of the day, people are going to label me the way they want to label me, regardless of how many degrees I have, how well I tip, how grammatically correct my emails are. They're going to label me the way they want to label me. And I need to figure out how to just do the things I want to do for myself. And changing the way I frame my accomplishments, I think, is going to be very helpful. This thing I want to do, starting my own business, I really believe in the message of the business, wanting to do something positive, wanting to, for my target audience, to instill, a certain value in, my target audience. It's hard to explain without giving it away, but it's just not ready yet. I don't want to, say it too fast. But that just really resonated with me. Like, fight to be better, the best version of yourself that you can be, and stop fighting to prove people wrong. And that's a lesson that I really need to learn. And back to the subject at hand, I hope that this conversation has helped LaShonda and Ramisha kind of patch up some things. They seem to have a deeper history than we're able to really go into. I had spoken earlier thinking that that Ramisha was maybe raised in a happier home than, she actually was. But I do hope that this has helped to patch their relationship up a little better. All right, y'all, we are back and we see Christian sit down with his mother, and he recounts the story of what it was like when he was sexually assaulted as a 6-year-old, I think. He told this story before, but a stranger took advantage of him while he was on his way home, and he was recounting what happened to him. And his mother was throughout everything when he was expressing his feelings, feeling alone, feeling abandoned, was, shaking her head no, wagging her finger no. And how invalidating is that? For you to tell your mom something that happened to you when you were 6. Of course, she knows. She found out shortly after it happened. For him to express what happened to him, why he didn't tell her, how he felt alone, how he felt neglected, and for her to just discount it. She didn't even have to say anything. Wagging a finger, shaking your head is basically saying your experience is invalid. What you experienced as a 6-year-old and what you continue to experience 30 years later as a 36-year-old man is invalid, because my experience of it is different. And it's just so weird. Like, how dare she talk about Ramisha and Christian's kids, being in a separate room for her when her son was violated, coming home from school because she wasn't there for him. I just don't get it. She's definitely living in a glass house throwing stones. And just to see her consistently invalidate her son without even saying a word is just so sad. And Iyanla is not God, okay? She's not a miracle worker. She doesn't get through to everybody. But to see Miss Rita be this resistant is like annoying. All right, y'all. Something wrong with Miss Rita, y'all. So, Miss Rita starts to get defensive, and Iyanla trades places with Christian. And it's like, how did you feel about what Christian just told you? And her response was defensive. I was there 10 minutes later. I was there for him. And he, you know, poor Christian just went almost catatonic. Like, just, poor thing, not really feeling any sympathy, not really feeling any love from his mother. Again, she was fighting to be right. And unfortunately, her son feels that lack of support. He almost couldn't really get out how he felt about it. It was like, I don't know how long it was till you got home, but it felt like forever, basically. And Iyanla was saying to her, and, told Christian to go take a walk and, drink some water and, kind of calm down. And she was talking to, Miss Rita, and Miss Rita recalls the events of what she was told, that he said that he was molested, and then he told his friend that he was actually raped 2 or 3 months later, and that the story had kind of changed. And while she feels guilty about it, Iyanla was right on, and she said, you didn't have a response to him being raped. You had a response to him saying something negative about you, saying that he was alone, saying that you neglected him. And she's so busy trying to be right, trying to be this good person, or this good representation of a person, or whatever she feels the optics of being a good mother are supposed to be, instead of just really feeling, understanding, and having sympathy for her son who was violated, and who consistently deals with the after effects of that, even 30 years later. It was just so unfortunate that she doesn't see that. And Iyanla was like, okay, you're the one who needs the psychiatrist, okay? You're the one who needs the help. And, I don't think Iyanla's wrong on that. All right, y'all. Miss Rita needs therapy. That's what Iyanla says. And the results are in. We all think she needs a little bit of therapy, okay? Because she's pretty much delusional, okay? And ignorant. So, yeah, maybe therapy will help her. Moving on, we see Iyanla bring in Ramisha and Christian in. And basically, Iyanla tells Ramisha and Christian that Christian is not emotionally safe with his mother. She basically felt like she was being blamed, and she got defensive, and she invalidated his story, and she wasn't receptive. So now they know that she is not an emotional safe house for her son, and Ramisha has to, step up and be that even more so for her husband. And Iyanla said something earlier that I forgot to address, when she said how much Christian lights up and how much he loves his wife, and how he's not passive, that he's just gentle, and how she should never open up her mouth again to say that he's passive. And that comes up again because Iyanla says to Christian and Ramisha that they are bonded by their wounds, and that Ramisha grew up with an aggressive man, and she doesn't really want an aggressive man, but then she gets mad at Christian for not being more aggressive. And then we have Christian, who grew up in a house where he was emotionally abandoned. And then he does things that, makes his wife be cold-hearted towards him. And it's just a vicious cycle. And Christian was like, basically, Iyanla got it dead on the nose. And they really seem to love each other. Christian is they are like a handsome couple, okay? They are both two beautiful people. And I think they're going to make it. I think Iyanla was right when she said that they need counseling. Yeah. Excuse me. Not to try to fix things alone. And we're getting to the last segment of the show. So let's see how things end up between all these family members. All right, now let me tell y'all something. So we are at the end of this episode, and we have all four of them sitting down together. They go over the things that they learned. They go over the things that they are going to do moving forward. And one thing that Iyanla said to Miss Rita that I thought was true, some positive feedback that she gave her, was that she was a trooper. And I truly believe that, because there are so many guests who come to Iyanla's show who do some form of leaving or trying to leave. Whether they leave the set, whether they leave the house altogether. Miss Rita didn't do that. And I think that it is somewhat brave of her to actually stay the whole time, even though she kind of took a beating with the truth bat, whatever you want to call it, with the truth stick. And interestingly enough, things seem to be better, in the little end credits that tell us about how everybody is doing. Things are better between everybody except Miss Rita. And you know what? It goes to show that some people are just toxic, and you can't have them in your lives, even if it is your mama. Okay, and I think that's very difficult for us to understand. I think a lot of times we want to force this fairy tale cookie cutter idea of a family where the mom is the center of the family, and then there's a dad, and they have this wonderful family. And people don't always grow up that way. Sometimes the people that raise you, or the people that raise some of their kids, are not good people, and you just got to cut them off, family or no family. Doesn't mean that you don't go visit them when they're sick, or that you stop allowing them to see their grandchildren or whatever. It just means that you don't have that intimacy with that person. And I don't know how far they've taken it. Miss Rita says that she is misunderstood. Of course, that's what the black sheep always says. And that she would prefer to spend time with her animals. And if her animals could talk, they would probably have some bad things to say about her too. So anyways, y'all, Miss Rita, I hope she's doing some work on herself. If she wants to be in better communication with her family, she should take Iyanla's advice. Y'all, I think this is the first time in a long time, maybe, that I feel like the Iyanla show had kind of a villain. It was quite hard to feel any sympathy for Miss Rita. And I think maybe that's what made this particular show, part 1 and part 2, a little bit more interesting than normal. Because again, this is not the first time that we've had a story about a, in-law relationship that, the mother-in-law is too involved in, the relationship between their child and their spouse. And but this one in particular was a lot more interesting to me. And so I think for the first time in a long time, we actually had a villain. And that while everyone had some blame, there was definitely one person that we could kind of point the finger to a little bit more than everybody else. And so I guess that's what made it interesting. But anyways, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video with someone who you think will enjoy it. Peace out, home slices.